For more on this, we can speak to international relations and foreign policy expert David Monyae. Good to have your time, so welcome to the program. So Blade Nzimande, speaking today ahead of the start of this Congress, says that the SACP Congress comes at a difficult time for South Africans. Problems economically, also the never-ending electricity crisis. But I wonder how effective the SACP has been as an agent for change when you consider that these have been long-standing problems which have only got worse for South Africa, especially among the poorest of us.
Well, indeed, I think at the heart of what's happening in the country, it's a political crisis which SACP should and must be able to give a clear explanation in terms of its position in relation to an alliance it has with the governing party, and therefore it cannot distance itself from what's happening nationally. Some of the failures that are clearly coming out from an ANC government, and therefore I think it's high time that the SACP look back since 1994 and say exactly as a communist party, what do they stand for? What are the norms and values that they stand for? And should they pursue their strategic objectives alone, or they need to continue relying on ANC? So these are some of the major ideological questions that they're supposed to deliberate on.
The South African Communist Party, it's all in the name, but when you look at how the government is run and how society in South Africa is run, you wonder if the foundations upon which the SACP was set up still exist in South Africa and are still feasible for people who are also, let's be honest, pursuing political careers.
Those are some of the contradictions within the party in terms of which path to take. I think if you go back in the early 90s, the bigger issue that came out with the late leader of SACP, Joe Slovo, bringing a paper in which he asked if socialism has failed. And that question, I think it's still relevant, that delegates should and must also discuss. Is socialism relevant? But we all know, yes, indeed, it is relevant. If we look and see what's happening in Latin America, Bolivia, and other places, left communist parties, some of them are coming into power, and it is possible for them to pursue a much more pro-poor, majority in terms of outstanding original mission of the party and the ANC itself, in terms of keeping it to its original mission, which is land and dealing with issues of unemployment and inequality in the country. And it appears in the last few years it hasn't been able to achieve that.
So how does the SACP reroute then to those ideals when you consider that its best friend, the ANC, has been blamed for simply refusing or being unable to move towards those goals which are part of the promises at the founding of this democracy in 1994?
I think it's a question of looking back from the 1920s up to 1994, that the SACP played a critical role in assisting and really giving ANC a much more catalytic, in terms of role that it played in bringing liberation and freedom. And now in post-1994, I think it is a must for SACP to mobilize masses on the ground and give maximum pressure, not just to the capitalists, but also to the governing party itself. There can be alliance with the ANC, in alliance with the ANC, but at the same time giving maximum pressure for the governing party to deliver on original mission: land, poverty and inequality, health, education, and all issues including question of crime.
It is expected this Congress to be Blade Nzimande's last one as General Secretary of the SACP. A new leadership will be elected. We don't know who will emerge definitively. But there have already been rumblings or reports that at least 3 provinces, including Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal, in fact want him to come back, but in a different portfolio as chairman. Does the party need that? Why not elect a completely different set of leaders?
I think those provinces need to think quite seriously. If SACP has to be an exemplary organization and an alliance partner in influencing the ANC, and ANC at the moment suffers from crisis of leadership, and SACP cannot afford to rely on just one individual. Comrade Blade has done extremely well. However, I think it's time for him to move on. There are other capable leaders within SACP to carry the strategy, to carry the struggle forward, with or without him. But he can continue to be a member of the party without necessarily holding a position.
The challenge, however, is that in most South African minds, when you think SACP, you think Dr. Blade Nzimande, don't you? And you wonder how much of its party identity has now been made to lie in an individual, and how it would recraft and reintroduce perhaps, or introduce to begin with, a new leader after 20 plus years of having the same man at the helm.
Indeed. I think the greatest challenge and shortcoming of the SACP, particularly under Comrade Blade Nzimande, has been the support for Jacob Zuma on the ANC. I think that really set in a huge dent in the party in terms of individualism instead of certain norms and values that are supposed to be pursued. And I think it's high time to leave the issue of individual and to associate with issues of access to power, ministerial position. I think those are some of the issues that delegates really need to think through and ensure that the new leadership stick to issues and push ANC to deliver.
Thank you very much, sir, for your time. David Monyae, an expert on issues of politics and foreign relations, speaking to us ahead of the start of the SACP's Congress.